Hey, welcome back to the podcast, Coach Frank.
Well, thank you so much for the invite, man. I appreciate that. Definitely.
You're always welcome. How's the new year been treating you, 2022?
2022 is has been remarkable. It really has. It's brought some different highlights as far as my family goes. I mean, we lost, and I shouldn't say we lost. We are now one less in our nest of children in our home. So it's been a challenge because for anyone that has children, every time that you're raising, you're developing your children, when one leaves, that leaves a hole in your heart. When another leaves, that leaves a deeper hole in your heart. And I got one left, So, of course, I was thinking about them today as I was detailing my car and thinking about them just because they used to help. You know what I mean? So it's a whole lot different, man. But yeah, 2022 has really been an epic moment for me and my whole family. Just not being able to have my two boys closer home has been a little bit of a discomfort. As far as like me and my wife, man, we're just thriving. I mean, we really are. Hey,
Yeah.
there's a lot of relationship, dating, um, things that we never used to do. She works out. I support her in her working out,
Mhm.
going to the movies, just going out to eat. Her and I, just little things like that. We bought a dog, so now we have a dog in our home. In Golden Doodle, and she's the bomb, man. Her name's Molly, so she's the bomb. Adding her into our life has been exceptional in
Yeah.
2022. But yeah, man, that's what's been going down for me as far as education goes. I'm still plugging away, man. I love what I do. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I know it's my genuine purpose. I know that
Mhm.
God put me on this earth to serve, and what better way to serve than to be an educator in the field of education.
Right.
So every single day is re-educating myself, empowering myself, being ready for the next level, and just sharing that with my students. I had like I said, man, 2022 has just been a remarkable year. A remarkable year. Added over $5,000 worth of books into my classroom.
Wow.
So just with different people as well as some capital that came my way, I was able to buy some different books. And so yeah, man. In fact, I'll let you look at some of the content right there. There's a lot of the books
It's a
will be
lot.
going into
Oh,
my classroom.
you got seven habits of highly or
Yeah, it's the Seven
um
Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen
yes.
Covey. I got Sean Covey. Uh, his son, his son
Mm.
developed this book. This is for my seventh graders. All of my sixth graders that come in, they all have to read every single book by John Gordon before
Oh,
the end of the year. So it's just, I mean, ultimately, man, it's fascinating, man. It really is fascinating to help children to grow, to develop, and to really tap into their full potential.
yeah.
It's just remarkable, bro.
It's I feel like I kind of got the idea from you to start a book club and to connect with people. Even recently, I started listening to Jocko Willings and Leif Babin's book Extreme Ownership, and
Yeah,
just
yep.
listening to that on Audible, I'm like, it's there's so much variety to books and like so many lessons that you can kind of pull from them. So it's always fun to just discover something new you've never discovered before, and also like being able to go back and rediscover some of the old classics like Who Moved My Cheese or The Seven Habits.
hmm You know, uh, my wife came to me Monday, and she's like, hey, I know you have a lot of books. I know you have enough books. She's like, but I do want to tell you that the Boys and Girls Club has this deal. So I said, well, tell me the deal. Being in sales, you learn what deals are, right? So I'm like, and so I tell my wife, I'm like, babe, tell me what the deal is, and I'll tell you what the deal is if it's a good deal. So she's like, this is what she tells me, bro. She's like, it's 20 books for $1. I was like, what the hell? Are you serious? I was like, that's a deal you can't beat. So I was
Right.
like, bet I'm a head over there after work on Monday, and that's exactly what I did, man. I made sure, but I even spread the news, man. I was even telling people like, hey, the Boys and Girls Club thrift store has got books, 20 books for $1. Dude, I was in there for an hour and a half, and that's just only because I had to get home and have dinner. But I was in there for, otherwise I'd have been there for like 3 or 4 hours. My wife already knows. Like when I go to Barnes and Noble, or if I'm shopping on, the Savers or Goodwill, and I'm looking for books, I could be in there for 4 or 5 hours, like straight up. That was just my nature. But nonetheless, I went back through before I walked out of there. I had my 18. Yeah, I had 18 books on Monday. Let me just tell you how powerful it is when you get into this bibliophile environment, and the bibliophile just being an avid person that just loves reading and learning. And I'm walking through the books again, and this young lady helps me. She grabs a cart for me. And I did this for a reason. I wanted to see how long it would take for an individual that worked there to bring me, because they're all students that work there, most of them. There's like one adult, but nonetheless, I waited for a long time. Actually, I waited to see how long it would take, as I'm holding 18 books in my hand with one hand, how many it would take, or how long it would take for one individual to bring me a cart. Now, again, I'm doing this for a lesson, to see the observation of other people.
Right.
Can I help you? The servitude, like, humanity has lost its way. So here I am looking through the books. This young lady asked me, do you need a cart, sir? I said, absolutely. She goes and gets me a cart. She brings it back to me. It took a while, but nonetheless, that's case in point is I found this particular book, a diamond. We always say this as a family. You'll find a diamond. You just got to look for it. You do got to look for them. I found Dr. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Probably one of my favorite books that was ever handed to me for free. And I've learned a lot of great things from Dr. Viktor Frankl. If you don't know who Dr. Viktor Frankl is, Dr. Viktor Frankl was a psychologist, a doctor that was Russian German, and he went to he had been separated. I can't tell you everything because it's good for you to decipher, to dive in and read and learn about this gentleman's life. But he was pulled from his wife, and his child. They all died. They all went to different concentration camps. Okay, I can't tell you any more than that. But he was able to persevere, overcome, and he talks about how to suppress all the other things that are going on in life, even the death of your wife and your children, and how to push forward and how to train other people to tap into their full potential. So it's phenomenal. Like, I found that diamond. I'm like, bet, because I already have 2 copies. I gave one a copy away in 2022. I already finished the book. I like to read that book at least once a year. And so I found a brand new one,
right,
in the library or in the thrift store. I gave it to my daughter. I was like, you're going to read this with me. I'm going to read it with you. That way she can get a different point of view. So 2022, it's been about re-educating, and you'll hear me use that a lot, is because I'm re-educating myself on different areas, different concepts, different principles, different perspectives. And so my daughter and I have been reading. We finished The Science of Success together, The Go-Giver together. I've already read these books, but now I'm rereading them with my daughter, making time, again, carving away time before it's too late. So that's what's been happening for me in 2022. I know it was a lot in a nutshell, but
no,
that's what's been happening.
I like that, because it's like you can kind of, it's a funny expression even in a nutshell, but it's like to, I guess, crack the nutshell, so to speak. What's that experience like for you when you're spending time with your daughter, rereading things, like re-educating yourself and maybe like educating her on something you're familiar with?
The experience for me is more than I guess I would say the Midas touch. Everything turns to gold, because, as human beings, we're never ever taught, whether even from parents today, even when I was a child, I was never taught that time is the most precious commodity in life outside of information. And that experience of spending time with my daughter is to really sharpen her mind and shape her future. So to sharpen her mind and shape her future, that way she doesn't always have to depend on another person. Now, I do want to have grandchildren from her. I do want her to get married. I can't wait for that moment when that does happen. But until that moment happens, I can only hope and pray, again, that experience that we're having, that she truly, genuinely, vividly will look for the right husband and judge him by his character and not by the external environment, but by the mental environment and by his actions. That's when, she's found a good man, and I know it's going to be hard for her because there's not too many good men today in life, man. They're just not, and I hate to, just to say it that way, but that's my experience. I worked with kids for 13 years, and I'm watching their behavior, and I'm watching them. As much as I try to spoon feed them and help them to develop, I had one student, Asher, this last week, he hit me up, and I haven't seen him in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, Coach Sagasta, his name is Ezekiel. But in my blog, I wrote on a little bit of small detail about him. I did say, Zeke, I called him Zeke in my blog. Mm-hmm. But Ezekiel, we shared a 90-minute phone call on Monday. So it was a great time because we had just finished this portion in the Go Giver called Influence. And after I got done with the call, I told my daughter, I said, Boo, what did you learn from the 5 laws? Let's talk about the 3 laws. And I said, the 3 laws. And number 1 law is value. The second law is compensation. The third law is influence. And when you use the power of influence, you're able to connect individuals. So these 13 years, yeah, I've had some connection with some great students, and they're still thriving and going forward and making achievements and successes in many areas. In fact, I seen one yesterday, but nonetheless, so I asked Zeke, what are you doing? He's like, Coach, I've been reading this. And so I picked out 2 books out of my pile of books around the house to take them to him. So Tuesday, I'll be dropping those off at his house. But yeah, man, that's what it's about, bro.
Yeah. I guess I'm curious, where do you keep all the books?
I have 2. I have books in my office here, and then I have a library in my living room. So we have about 927 books. So that's not counting the 20 I just got. So about almost 965 books. Yeah. And out of the 965 books, I've read about 3/4 of them. So I still have more that I go back to. Russell Conwell's The Acres of Diamonds. I still go back to that book. So when I reread these books, I don't always share them with other people and say, oh, I read 100 books this year, or I read 50 books this year, because I've already read that book. So I don't add that to the number of books that I already have lined up in my journal for the books that I want to read this year. No, I don't. I got 62 books that I have to read this year that I already have, aside from everything else that I'm going through. So
I like that. It's interesting how reading a book is, I would almost compare it like listening to music, but reading a book, it lasts a little bit longer than listening to music or listening to a song, but it has an interesting way of shaping your mind or changing your mood, or just I'd almost say it's almost like it's tap dancing on your consciousness, so to speak. With the book that I mentioned earlier, I'm listening to it on Audible, and the way that the effort that they put into doing the voiceovers and I forget if there's production in there to where you hear the action, because it's being told from 2 former Navy SEALs, and they're sharing experiences when they were deployed, and they're also sharing their experiences in the business world when they've worked with people in that sense. And it kind of reminds me, hearing someone else talk, that it's I have the ability to create with my own imagination the story, or I can tell it in my own way. And it's I don't always have to listen to someone else, but even opening something up to read and just being oh, okay, I can read it this way, or I can read it this way. And it's if you read something differently, it kind of just, I don't know if it can remind you of some things, and then it can open you up to other things you might not have been conscious of before. It's
No,
like
that's a
that
fact.
elastic just
Hmm.
stretching, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. I mean, I shared a TikTok video about a month ago. No, it's about yeah, about 3 weeks to a month ago, and I specifically gave out, the books that I had just finished for the month,
Mm,
and I shared five genuine tips. And the last tip being, if you really want to get better at your reading comprehension skills, and I'm not an English major or English teacher, but what I have learned in my experience, what I've learned from other teachers and the
mhm,
lessons is, using, for those people that don't or cannot afford at this precise time, can't afford audio book through Amazon or any other one out there, even if it's a low one for $5,
mhm.
then use YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube has phenomenal. Yeah, you have to deal with the commercials, but that's all a principle of called patience. Just be
Mhm,
patient. You're going to hear the book, you're going to finish the book. But I mean, I've done that with my daughter where, we're reading two different books, three different books, and we're
mhm.
listening to the audio sometimes. Again, this is a whole different way of me re-educating. That's what re-education is.
Yeah.
So re-educating the different way of learning. And so for us, I've already read the books in silence, where with
Mhm,
Mozart or Beethoven in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. So I've already read these books, but now it's actually playing them on YouTube or an audiobook. If I have the audiobook, I'll
mhm,
play it on the audiobook on our TV in our living room, and we'll sit there and we'll read together.
mhm,
We call it popcorn. So I'll read a certain part or for
mhm,
so long, and then I'll bust it to her. And
mhm.
so
That's
again,
funny.
these are all skills, man. These are phenomenal skills that, again, a lot of people don't, they don't make time. And I'm not saying everybody, but there's a great number of individuals on this planet that don't make that quality time
Yeah.
of importance. And for me, that's important because that's my last C. That's the bloodline. You,
Mhm,
you know what I'm saying? Like my two boys, they're still avid learners, they're readers.
mhm.
They don't read in the same context or the same material that I read, but at least they're reading.
Right.
And fundamentally, that's the key point. Because like Abraham Lincoln said, a good friend is a person that gives me a book that I've never read before.
Mhm,
That's a good friend. That's a great friend. And there's so much truth to that particular motto or quote or phrase or statement. And he was absolutely correct. And that's exactly what I'm illustrating and demonstrating to my children on an everyday basis. So you're absolutely correct. We learn differently. Our perspectives are very different. For me, I love books.
yeah.
I do. If it wasn't for Sharon, Think and Grow Rich, it would have never opened up the whole door. And I've
Mhm,
read the Bible, just open up the Bible and going 10 years of just waking up every single morning to read the Bible and read my other books has just opened up magnificent doors for me.
yeah.
Magnificent doors. And not just mentally, but also emotionally and psychologically and physically.
Mm. Have you found that reading helps you write better?
Yes.
Mm,
Yes, you're more conscious when you're writing. And what
mhm.
I have learned is not, and this is what blows my mind. It's like
Yeah.
because you hear because I my classroom is literally paired next to, I mean, with 6 inches, 8 inches
Mhm,
of the English teacher,
mm.
and she's very anal. No disrespect, but she's very anal on how she's very I guess grammarly uh, punctual on
Right,
everything,
right,
right?
right.
But I've noticed, man, I've noticed that not every single writer is the same, period.
Mhm, right.
It doesn't matter if you're Mark Twain, if you're, Charles Dickens, if you're, Ralph Waldo Emerson. It doesn't matter if you're Marcus Aurelius or Socrates or Plato. It doesn't matter if you're Eric Thomas or Les Brown. Every single writing that I have looked at all throughout these years
Mhm,
of just being very committed to reading, they're all different, man. Like the
mhm.
commas sometimes are not in the same place.
Right.
The apostrophes are not in the same place. The capitalization, sometimes the grammar when you're reading, it's like, whoa, what? Wait, you have to reread it. Let me
Mhm.
reread that one more time. You know what I mean? Like it's amazing, man. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, English is powerful. And I was never good at it. But the more that I read, the
Mhm,
more it has given me more confidence in my writing, more confidence in my speaking. And it opens up different vocabularies. And that's what I keep on pressing upon the children today. Like,
mhm.
you have no idea of what different world will open up when you start to open up a book.
Yeah.
And they a lot of people like to harp on it because I'm not a fiction reader,
Mhm,
but I live in a real life. not everything is fiction in my life. Now, are there some good fiction books? Absolutely, there's some good fiction books.
Yeah.
But my 99% of what I read is all, it's not fake.
Yeah.
There's no fakeness in it. It's real life lessons, real principles, real concepts, and real perspectives from genuine individuals that have actually made their mark throughout history. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I think sometimes not to speak for other people, but I think sometimes people will need to insert fiction. Like if you can't, if you have a hard time, maybe like finding levity in life, in real life. So it's like for you, knowing you, like you know how to enjoy your surroundings, your environment. Like you can crack a joke, like you listen to music, you have a
Mm-hmm.
very diverse palette of what you take in. But for other people, for me, I'll use myself, not other people. For me, I found that like I've gone down the track of just, what would you call it, just gorging information, like wanting to
Mm.
get that the
Mm-hmm.
principles so much.
Mm-hmm.
We may have
Yep.
talked
Yep.
about this last time too, where it's like i I may not leave room for like the coloring or like the other experiences. It's like I can become so rigid and dogmatic to where it's like this. But
Mm-hmm.
even in like the extreme ownership book, where they talk about like things like decentralized commands, it's like you can have a plan to do something, but you have to have some flexibility in there. And
That's
it's
right.
like if your routine is so rigid, like the moment one thing goes out of place, it's like the whole thing just falls down. It's like he's like, I didn't give myself enough wiggle room to be like, okay,
Right.
well,
Right.
it's not going to be perfect the first go around, so just like
Mm-hmm.
just do it. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason I asked about how reading has helped you be able to write is that in following Jordan B. Peterson, a psychologist,
Yep. I know
he's
it
really
is.
made a big emphasis about like being able to write is very much tied to how you think. And obviously,
Yep.
so it's like what you read helps
Yep.
put information into your head, and you being able to get your words together helps you be able to think. And like me myself using one of his resources where it helps you uncover your past, look at your present, set some goals in the future. It's like you can write out things as to like, okay, what are some goals you'd like for like the next 6 months, the next year, the next two
Mm-hmm.
years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the things that was so refreshing when I was doing it, was that, and hearing him talk about it on different platforms, podcasts and things like that, is like, do it badly, like do it as terrible as possible and just get it done. Just that way, it's like if you put a bad plan together, a bad plan is better than no plan. And it's like
True.
as soon as you actually go through the process of doing that, and you're answering questions um, to really refine what it is that you're thinking about, it helps you kind of identify like, oh, okay, like maybe this will work. And by the time you know it, I think I started on this thing maybe 2 years ago, and it's like the timeline that I set has like come and gone, but many of the like
Mm-hmm.
the things that I would have thought would have been small goals, like I've been able to do that. Like say, okay, I'm at my parents for the better part of a year, I want to move out, kind of go back to where I was before, like be back in an independent state, but be
Right. Right. Right.
healthier. And one of the things that I'd written down was like, leave on my own accord, not out of like resentment, like, oh, I'm leaving, I don't
Right.
want to come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like,
Right. Right. Right.
leave freely, to where it's like you can come back without harboring anything. And it's like
Exactly. Right.
being able to go back and visit and kind of help out around the house is like, hey, I managed to do that. I'm doing a job that I can enjoy. And
Mm-hmm.
like I'm doing actually more than I thought I could do. And being able to go back and use the tool to put my words together and really just see, okay, if this isn't going in the direction I want, now I remember the tools that I have, and I can apply those. And just in journaling and learning different ways to journal, like learning how to address things that may be offensive or that I might find offensive during a day-to-day walkabout. It's like, oh, okay, like, why does this offend me? Like, where does that come
Yeah,
from?
yeah, right,
And
right,
like
right, right.
answering those types of questions have been eye-opening.
Yeah, oh yeah, they really are. No, they really are. Well, I reading is definitely opened up different doors, and being able not just to write, but also, like I said earlier, in speaking, you know, being able to reflect. That's one
Mm.
of been the biggest thing for me is reflecting, making sure I make time to reflect. And my wife catches me a whole lot more than years before, and she at times will catch me and I'll just be in an absolute genuine trance where everything. And I shared this the other day with us. We were on our way to church. And I
Mhm.
said, "Boy, have you ever driven and you just autopilot for whatever means you're just in autopilot? You know exactly what is going on in front of you. You know what's going on around you, but in your mind, you've carved out a small space in your mind and you're thinking on what you read this morning, but at the same time, you're driving. You're turning the signal on, you're turning northbound, and you know you got a green light. Like, and my wife is talking, and my daughter's talking.
Mhm.
So all these things are going on. So, I said, I was telling her about this, and she was like, she catches me from time to time in a total trance. And it's not that I'm just like stuck on dumb or just stuck on idle. No, I'm in the moment where I'm actually putting all the pieces that I've just finished and I've just read in my mind, and I guess I'm finding the right file cabinet to
Mhm.
store them in. That way I
Yeah.
don't lose them. And so that's how I reflect. And that's the
Mhm.
benefit of reflection, for me. But ultimately, yeah, there's a great experience in reading, man. There really is. If it wasn't for Booker T. Washington, if it wasn't for Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln and a few others that, helped to edify what reading really meant
Mhm.
and how you can really be free by reading. I look at my posts sometimes on Facebook or on TikTok, or not on TikTok, but on the Twitter, and
Mhm.
I'll notice like, wow, I'm word vomiting. Like
Mhm.
I'm dropping a lot of words, and it's become now a blog because I didn't, I mean, that's just how my mind works now in
Mhm.
2022, 2021. It's very different,
Yeah.
versus the years before. It was, we call it in sales, you call it the kiss effect. Keep it simple, stupid.
Mhm.
Is just be quick about it. And
Mhm.
Coach John Boyne used to say, don't take 30 minutes for something you can say in 30 seconds. And it
Mhm.
was like, oh, okay, cool, bet. But sometimes that's not always the best bet. And that's one thing I've learned from, ancient teachers is that's not always the best bet.
Right.
Just being fast is not always the best bet. Being very precise and a very, not just precise, but very, what's, when you're going to share something,
Mhm.
share it with passion, but also be very uh, precise on how you do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
like
it was,
having context helps a lot of times when you share
yes, it
something,
does.
because it's like something can be said. I guess several things can be misinterpreted if it's just like, oh, there's this nice saying. I think people say, "Jack of all trades, master of none," and it's like
Right.
that's something that can be misinterpreted without
It
the
is.
full
Has been.
context of where it comes from, what it means, why
Yeah,
it's utilized. And it's like a cliche can kind of lose
it
its
sure
value
is.
if
That's
it's
right.
not like this became a cliche because of this. And just knowing the, what would you say, like the power behind story. It's like
Yeah.
a great storyteller is always captivating, but I think sometimes it can become, if like a story is just told over and over and over and over, it feels like it can kind of lose a little bit of
It
its
loses
merit,
value.
because
Yeah,
it's like,
that's right.
okay,
It
you
loses
told
value.
me this story Monday,
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, like what's the point? Or it's like,
Yeah.
I think I heard the point, but like just because you keep telling me the story over and over and
Mm-hmm.
over, like I'm not getting it. And I
There's a
almost,
lot of
No, I was
But
just gonna
I'm sorry.
say I almost find it funny, or if my dad would hear, or as my dad hears me now talk about reading, I see him kind of chuckle because I remember growing up, it's like he would always be like, read, 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 read. And I'd just be like,
Yeah, nah,
he's
man.
got the
I ain't got time for
library and
that, man.
everything. I was like,
Yeah,
I
right,
don't
right.
want to, but then like you're saying, being exposed to different types of books and just seeing that you can read a book differently, I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
that,
a lot of power.
yeah,
There's a lot of power in it. A lot of power. Yeah, it's very really it really is cool. You know, and I know a lot of people don't think it's cool. And, you know, and we have a brother in BU, you know, Mr. Flores, um, Matt Flores. He read a book in 100 days, or
mm-hmm.
you know, 100 books in 100 books in a year, and he wrote a little book on how he did it and so forth. And it's been some time since I've read it, but nonetheless, you know, I've heard different speakers say, you know, don't read books. Books are a waste of time, or they cut corners and they find different methods of simplifying the book, you know, and just going for the lessons. And you know, he used to say years ago, be specific what you're looking for. And so for me, I was very specific. It was metaphysics, sociology, psychology, leadership, and positive psychology. So I was very specific in those 5 areas because I had 5 people in my home. So that's the number that I've always utilized in my mind, is it has to match
Yeah,
5 laws and so on and so forth. So it was easier for me. Yeah. When I went to certain books and I read them, I went back and I just cut them and I just dissected them and I just specifically got what I really was looking for. And I went just to those chapters. So it
yeah,
was a whole lot easier to take what he had mentioned. But going back to what you said, the people that repeat and repeat and repeat, a lot of it is for them. And I've heard Les Brown talk about this. It's all it is self mastery. Is you're mastering the specific speech because you want to master it.
mm,
You know, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Again, if that's what certain people need, that's it too. But I
yeah,
look at E, and E changed. He had to change the whole thing up. Can't use, you know, the secret to success style of, you know, if you really want to succeed, you'll breathe storyline. He
mm,
couldn't use that the rest of his career. He
mm,
knew he had to change it. He knew he had to develop something else. And, you know, just learning that genuine story, the value behind the real story of Aristotle or Socrates, and that whole story and how it played out
mm,
is phenomenal. It's a great story. You know, like the story of Marcus Aurelius, and the cliche of people you hear so many, you got to burn the bridges, you got to burn the boats and so forth, but nobody ever tells you the back end genuine story because it's too long.
right,
They never tell, they don't want to tell you the whole long story because they don't know the story, or because they genuinely know that it's too long and
mm,
that they may lose value. And there's a lot of truth to that. There's
right,
a lot of truth to that people do lose value in listening. And that's one of the greatest forms of communication, is listening.
mm,
When people forget how to listen, then they forget how to communicate. And for me, reading books, I'm listening to somebody else's perspective. I'm listening to somebody else's education and life lesson and experience. And so I'm taking it and I'm utilizing it. And if there's some things that are you know, that are practical, then I'll keep on using them.
right,
If they're not, then I discard them and keep moving. You
mm,
know, it's one of the fascinating things about learning is you don't have to stay in that specific area and we're not trees. I
right,
don't have to stay there and wither away. I can continue to grow and just keep moving.
yeah. I think that part right there, the point that you made about the ability to listen, and then also be able to change as you listen, because it
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes a huge difference in the person you become, or the person that you are, because that's just funny.
In my classroom, man.
It's
In my
like, no,
classroom, I
it's
got
just like, it's like you just tickled my brain and I'm sitting here just like I don't even know what to say to that.
it's cool, man. It'll come to you, but in my classroom, I have a stop sign.
Mm,
And in the top of it, it says, you know, of course, it says stop,
mm,
and then below it says think.
mm,
And I've always expressed that for this whole 2021, 2022 school season. And when we go embark on 22, 23 season, it's still
mm.
going to be the same. I'm not moving that sign.
Yeah.
I'm leaving it there because I want students to stop and think, question,
Yeah.
ask questions before you leave. And that's one of the things that Zeke said on Monday,
Mhm.
after, giving praise and gratitude for being in my class and sharing some phenomenal things and the podcast he's been listening to, like, and without me even, again, I haven't talked to this young man in 2 years, but he's telling me he's listening to Jim Rohn, he's listening to Les Brown, he's listening to Tony Robbins, he's listening to Eric Thomas. He shared 3 of Eric Thomas's, like, just this week, different podcasts he was listening to. I'm like, oh man, that's my teacher. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember him learning some great things from my teacher.
Mhm.
So I said, I still listen to him from time to time. I don't listen to him all the time,
Mhm.
but I do listen to him from time to time, and I still reach out to him from time to time, and just to let him know, what successes that I'm or achievements that I'm receiving, or blessings that I'm receiving. I do share that, because if it wasn't for him, again, I would not be in this position. I would not be the person I am today. Needed a great teacher. Case in point, needed a great teacher, needed a great mentor.
Yeah.
And then he opened up the door from different teachers, different mentors. But nonetheless, Zeke told me that, and I was like, wow. I was like, oh, that's cool, man. Like, I was moved. I was definitely moved, because I'm like, here's E who touched me, and I touched this other kid, but through me, he's now connecting to E. Like, it was dynamic. And
Yeah.
that's where that whole, again, stop and think. If the students were just to stop and think, and to really, really come to the realization, like, hey, I am smart, I am
Mhm.
intelligent, I can be even better, I can really tap into my full potential, I do have greatness, I was born with greatness.
Yeah.
Once they start discovering these things, oh my God, like, it's a whole new world, it's a whole new level, it's a whole new reality.
Mhm.
It's just magnificent. And one of the things that Zeke said before we got off the phone, the 90-minute call, is he specifically said, I apologize for not asking enough questions, Sagasta. I was just like, wow, like, that hit me, man. Like, and that's the thing I've been pounding on my kids for the last year and a half to 2 years. Like, ask questions. It don't have to be questions just generally in my class.
Mhm.
Ask questions when you go to different classrooms.
Yeah.
That's where real learning begins. If it
Right.
wasn't for the apostles asking Jesus questions, if it wasn't for, Jesus even questioning his father at times, if it wasn't for the ancient teachers asking questions, we would never have, the Library of Alexandria, or the Library of Andrew Carnegie, or Benjamin Franklin's very first library. Like, we would never have those things.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have them. We wouldn't know what to do. So yeah, it's remarkable, brother. Just being able to stop, think, and then ask a question and listen. Just
Yeah.
listen.
What's interesting is that if you find yourself in an environment where you're not encouraged to ask questions, or you're deterred from asking questions, that could be a good sign
Yeah.
to get moving.
Yeah, for reals. Yeah, for reals. Yeah.
So what's the summertime like for you? Being, I'm guessing you're
Oh
off from school.
yeah, I will. Okay, so for me, I take 2 weeks off. Like,
Mhm.
for the last since I've been with Desert Star Academy, uh, going on 6 years, man. Going on 6 years. This year will be 6 years in
Mhm.
February. But nonetheless, so in summertime, we started this program after my first year there. We
Mhm.
started a summer program, and so what I do is I take 2 weeks off. And that's 2 weeks just to reflect, spend some time with my family, go on a little mini vacation, whatever the case may be. But after that, I go back into the grind. So I prepared the last 2 months. I prepared outings, different activities for students for our school. In the past, we used to have students that would come from California, stay with their aunt, uncle, or grandparents, and I used to open it up for the community.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing some of the behaviors, some of the different things, and I was like, yeah, now I'm closing it, tight niche, just for the school students that are associated with our school.
Right.
That's it. And so I left it at that. And I have, between 18, 25, 30 kids every single summer,
Mhm.
and I take them Las Vegas. We go to different places. Like, I push their limits. I, again, explore the real life, explore the
Mhm.
experiment of comfort zone, like, spelunking, going zip lining, doing, scuba diving, you know, just an array of different things. Like this week, I have Monday off, but Tuesday, they're gearing up to go camping. Some of them have never been camping
Right.
ever. So I'm taking them to Amarillo University, which is one of the top aeronautical universities in our country. It's in Prescott,
Mhm.
Arizona. They've invited us, so we're going to go there. Like, this is what I do during the summer. Like, just take students, take kids, including my own kids at one time,
Mhm.
and we do things that they will never get the opportunity to do, or they may get the opportunity, but it might be, again, not with a group of students that they probably will see or will not see. Like, it's hard to tell, but nonetheless, it's just taking them outside and making sure they're not just in the room. Because I ask students, I survey all the time. I'm always asking students, like, hey, what would you do if you didn't come to our summer program? I'd probably be in my room just playing video games or on my phone. I'm like, this is the next generation, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, Asher? Like, this is the next generation. If kids don't have, places and outlets for things to explore their imagination, creativity, collaboration, and communication and critical thinking, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
As leaders on this earth, what are we really doing?
Right. It's great to hear that you're doing that, because I was listening to an interview yesterday with Jonathan Haidt and Glenn Lowry. And I think Jonathan Haidt, he's also a psychologist that wrote the book, The Coddling of the American Mind. And he talks about the loss of free play with children in America, or just in developed countries where you've had this, what would you call it? There's been like a scare where before, when kids were younger, say in the 80s, maybe like pre 90s,
70s and early 80s. Yep.
Right. So
I read that book. That's why I was looking around. I was like, I know I have that book because I just finished it last year.
Gotcha. But it's like,
anyways,
since he keeps coming up in the because I watch a lot of YouTube, listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm like, and that's why I was like, let me listen to the book Extreme Ownership, because I think what Korshan had recommended it from the men's line, and talking with him, I like how he thinks and things like that. And I listened to Jocko's podcast, but listening to this, it's like creating that environment to have the free play where they're among other students of their age, getting outside, getting to play, getting to have new experiences that they maybe have never had before. They can discover like, oh, that was cool. Like, I'd like to do that again. Or maybe I don't want to do it again, but at least I'm glad I can look back and be like, I went camping once. And it's like that, that makes a big difference.
Oh yeah. Again, even some of the trials that, my first year when we went camping, I didn't look at the weather and it started to rain. It got really cold. Right. And so it was an experience though. And that's one of the things. The next morning when it was all cleared, I expressed to all of them, like, that's an experience, like overcoming those experiences, being able to sleep with the thunder going on and the wind just blowing, like, that's, for me, I was thinking of, Jesus on the ship, and, and the all the men came to Jesus and were like, hey, well, how can you sleep in this time, of discomfort, and the boat's rocking and so forth. That's always that I've always thought about different storms in life. I always go back to that story in my mind. But yeah, man, it's an experience for all of them to learn and to grow and to develop. And, they got to be able to see the outside world. Yeah. If it's all the time on the device, and I've already done my research, and like I said, I've read that book, and, there's a lot of kids today that are just connected too long into the umbilical cord of a device or a remote control. And they're losing, we as humanity, we're losing this ability to conversate, to carry on a dialogue, to critical think, to communicate, to even just to collaborate on different ideas or have a good dialogue.
Yeah.
It's becoming a very a scarcity almost. Even today, even the politicians, like, you listen to them and you study the form of communication, you listen to them long enough, you go, wait a minute, man, like, this is like elementary style of communicating. Like, how are you guys not thinking right now? This doesn't work. We've studied this throughout history. So it's phenomenal, bro. And I love the kids. I treat them, every single one of them. I treat them all like they were my own. Having my daughter, I always express this with my students, and I used to do this, with my athletes. Is I never want to treat a student higher or lower than anybody else. Treat them equal all the way across the board. That's when you build a strong relationship.
Agreed. So, well, I don't want to look too far ahead. I was going to ask, so how do things wrap up from the summertime going back into the new school year?
So for me, we end about a week early,
Mhm.
and then I go right into they call them professional development classes and time with the teachers where we collaborate. We come together. We have like a day or two where we talk about what we did over the summer and so forth, and we get our rooms ready, and we have different presenters, keynote presenters come in and try to motivate us. Well, I shouldn't say try. They No, that's the right word. They try to motivate certain teachers or inspire teachers to get ready for the new year. Those are pretty cool. Don't get me wrong. For me today in 2022, I know this for the last 10 years that motivation is something that comes from within. It was great that I had Eric Thomas that motivated me to start learning to read. That was my motivation.
Yeah.
Now I'm motivated to read all the time by myself. You
Mhm.
know, um, all these different things. The number one motivational book in our house is our Bible. So, that's my motivation to get up every single morning to read that before anything else and
Right.
to really sit back and reflect that. So, when I go into some of these meetings, it's not going in as an arrogant individual because I do want to hear somebody else's perspective. I
Mhm.
do want to hear their insight. I want to hear their experience. And I do take notes all the time.
Mhm.
I'm always taking notes. But ultimately, I'm there for the teachers. I
Mhm.
wanted to, again, to genuinely ask questions because I know a great deal of the teachers today in the last 13 years that I've been in education, they
Mhm.
don't like volunteering. They don't like to volunteer. They don't like to leave the comfort zone. They don't like to communicate with other people or collaborate outside of the scope of the three core teachers they're associated with. So, like two English teachers will
Yeah.
not collaborate. Most likely, they won't collaborate with the science teacher or the PE teacher
Mhm.
because some of them have this cliche thought where I went to a university and I studied English and I'm above everybody.
Yeah.
So, for me, I'm the icebreaker. I'm the dude that just comes in and just starts breaking the ice and just fellowshipping with everybody. And it doesn't matter who you are, what you look like.
Mhm.
Your degrees don't mean nothing to me. Like it's just me and you. It's humanity.
Right.
I base everything off of your actions, how you behave, how you speak to me, how you listen to me, how I listen to you, and how I behave in front of you. That's what I base off of. So yeah, it's a great time, and I adjust a whole week prior. We stop a week early. We end July 20th,
Mhm.
and then I start getting ready mentally for school for the new educated year. And I start getting my classroom ready, making sure that my walls are decorated, ready to go. They're inspiring, they're motivating. They have my rules, I have my curriculum, I have my lesson plans for the next 30 days or 90 days, and I'm just ready to get going. You know what I mean? That's what I do. Like I pre-game and pre-plan, and as soon as I go in, I'm already in the mindset of let's go win.
Yeah.
Let's knock out 22, 23 school season. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't it's really not long, bro. Like we go to school 4 days a week.
Yeah.
So, it's there's a lot of gaps too. So you got Christmas vacation and all these other vacations and breaks. So, I'm trying to collectively give them as much content and much material as I possibly can in the
Mhm.
156 days or 162 days, 68 days that they have with me. So it's a challenge, but it's also a great reward, a great reward.
It's cool. I like that you shared about the teaching dynamics because I think last time we kind of talked about the difference between a charter school and like a public school or private
Hmm.
traditional type school, and to still see, even though the structure of the school system is set up differently, you still have some of like similar personalities where
Hmm.
people still end up in these places regardless.
Yeah, yeah. I just spoke to she's going on her 30th. This will be her 30th year in education,
Mhm.
so she's a guru. And so I ran into her yesterday, and she was like, I said, "What are you going to do?" She's like, "Well, I was thinking about retiring, but my daughters are going to the age," and I seen her daughter because her daughter used to be one of my athletes, and so it was nice to see them both. And you know, I said, so what are you going to do when you retire? She looks at me, she says, "Well, Frank, I don't know." Like she goes, "So I'm thinking of just staying in it and doing it, keep on going." And so I gave her a big high five, and I'm like, "Yeah, because we need great teachers. Like who else would fill your shoes?" And she
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my God, that's a great compliment." I said, "Well, it's a reality because you're genuinely in your purpose as a math teacher. Like you're a master at math.
Mm.
My children remember you. Like, you know what I mean? Like there was something distinctively, I wish I would have had you as my math teacher, case in point, because I would have loved math,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, man, when you see veterans like that and they have a great mindset and they're in their purpose, I love being around those ones. You know, and you can definitely sense the vibe of those that are 9 to 5, just got to put in my time and go home. You know, those are the people that I have to, you know, move away from, because those are the negative Nancy, those are the Karens, those are the people that are contagious. And so you don't want to be around those people, you know. So for me, that's, again, it's a no-brainer. I got to be around people that are enthusiastic about their purpose, their gift, and you can literally collaborate and communicate and find some great things that you know you share common interests on this earth. It's great, man. It really is.
Yeah, I love that. Let people know how they can connect with you and maybe collaborate with you in the school system or outside of the school system.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So for everyone that's tuning in, my name is Coach Frank Sagasta, educational leader in the great state of Arizona, District 5. And the best way to get a hold of me is either slide and DM me, or again, email me. And that's email is Coach Sagasta or Coaching Beyond 5 at gmail.com. Or you can find me on social media platforms and just DM me there.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Use
really
Google, man.
Appreciate
Google,
the time.
yeah. Just use Google.
Or Google.
That's
Yeah.
it. I'm serious. Like I went to the auto parts store, man, and this dude was on his Facebook, man. I know that customer service has gone downhill ever since the blimp, right? Ever since the pandemic, but nonetheless, man, I'm standing there, and I'm like just breathing in. So I said, you know, I let him know. I said, I need a cabin air filter and I need an engine air filter for this specific vehicle. And so he does that. But we go over there, man. And so he only gives me the one. Again, active listening skills. He only gives me the one. I'm like, no, I need the cabin filter too. He's like, oh, so he whips out his phone. He uses Google, and I'm watching him. He's using Google, man. I'm like, oh, dude. I said, man, if I'd have known you just use Google to find the part, man, I'd have did that myself, bro. Like that. And he's like, oh no, he's like, no disrespect. He's like, no, you really have to come to the desk because there could be an error. And in fact, there was. So the cabin air filter that he had researched and he had found right there on his Google, we went back to the desk. He typed it up. It was the wrong one, so he had to go back. So I'm like, you see what I'm saying? Like if you had just listened the first time, you wouldn't have had to kill that time. Like these are the things that my critical mind starts thinking about. And it's, again, helping individuals, even my students, alleviate those moments. That way you're at your most supreme with your customers. And it doesn't matter if they're your parents, your customers, you know, whoever they might be that's buying into your time. So, yeah, man, it's phenomenal, brother. I thank you so much for inviting me back onto your podcast, man, because every single time is your time to be on this podcast.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Man, that was awesome.